You are listening to the Innovating Cannabis podcast, where you will meet entrepreneurs, cultivators, scientists, doctors, and inventors in the cannabis industry.
I'm your host, Pam Schmiel. In addition to hosting and producing this show, I'm a freelance writer and editor for the Cannabis Industry Journal. Today, our guest is Rama Mayo. He's the co-founder of Hall of Flowers, one of the most influential B2B trade shows in the cannabis industry, bringing brands and retailers together in California for the past 8 years. The show recently made its New York debut, and Rama joins us to share how the East Coast industry received it. We also dive into the cultural and brand differences between the West and East Coasts, and explore how both markets can collaborate to support each other's growth. With more than 2 decades immersed in California's cannabis scene and a background in music and fashion before that, Rama offers insight into his vision for Hall of Flowers and the future of the cannabis industry. Let's welcome Rama Mayo to the show. But I thought, everybody knows Hall of Flowers. Right.
That's cool.
Isn't it one of the first B2B trade shows in the industry, basically? Wasn't it?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably I haven't thought of it this way, but yeah, probably the first.
Yeah.
As far as like plant touching and all that stuff, we don't have the first license ever in California, but we have the longest running. The first license is not active, but we have like the longest licensed running show in Cali.
Oh, okay.
It's been 8 years of doing that. Yeah.
That's what I was wondering, how long it's been around for. So 8 years. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's before the hemp bill passed.
Yeah. Before hemp bill, it was really right when rec was coming out in California.
Oh, right. That's 2016, 15? Something like that.
My brain is blurred from COVID, but yeah, I think we launched 2017, and it was like
2018.
Yeah, because the brands were kind of required to start putting their stuff into packaging and whatnot. So like the timing for us was really kind of perfect, and we had the idea prior to that. We'd been working on it, but that really coincidentally lined up, and timing was really perfect for us. So
right. And what were you doing before, and what made you were you ever in plant touching at all, or?
So I was doing a company called Green Street, which essentially was an agency for dedicated to cannabis, and we had started that in 2013. So 12 years ago. And that was, like cannabis brands and accessory products, things like that. The first client was G-Pen, the portable vaporizer. And then we did a bunch of other products and brands after that. And the whole entire time we were working like on the creative side with those brands, it was like, okay, like where are the shows? Where do you go do this? And I come from music, and then I did a couple years in fashion, and in fashion you have like the Magic trade show, or my partners in Hall of Flowers did some trade shows called Agenda and Liberty and Capsule. And in music, there was obviously South by Southwest and Coachella and these kind of big things. And with cannabis, there was Champs show in Vegas there, and there was a few more. There was the BIG show, the Big Industry show, which did a show in LA, and some others like before that in Vegas and other places. And I guess MJ BizCon was happening. I wasn't really going out for that at that time. But yeah, there wasn't really like anything in California for the actual like weed stuff.
Yeah, so coming to New York, what how was it? And I was wondering how it was going to turn out, and like I had mentioned earlier, I'm really disappointed I didn't get to attend because I was out of town, but I was worried that there was another trade show that you guys were kind of bumped up against, like, within weeks of each other. So I thought, wow, how's that going to happen? Only because, we're state siloed, and we
Of course.
only have so many brands, and
Of course. Of course.
and
Yeah.
how many
Yeah. Yeah.
times do you to get the buyers to come and, you
Yeah.
know, uh,
Yeah.
yes, how did that,
Yeah.
what
Well, the
was your
good
thinking
news is,
there, and were
yeah.
you
So
scared?
the dates weren't ideal. It's the dates that we were able to do. So my partner, like I mentioned, did the fashion trade shows. They actually did a trade show at that venue like 12 or 15 years ago or something like that. And so we knew that venue for a long, long time. So, we had our eyes on that spot, and the calendar's really full. So, we really only had one slot. We took it, and of course, we knew we were up against the other show. And the good news is when we talk to all the buyers, they get to come for free. So they're like, fuck yeah, like the Super Bowl and the Pro Bowl or whatever you want to call them, like two, great. We would love to come to this awesome, cool event for free. And like you had mentioned, people know Hall of Flowers. We've built up, trust and things like this. So, people definitely wanted to check out what we were like the experience. And then we had obviously a lot of California brands that are coming to New York and, going to a bunch of other states too. So they were kind of rushing to get their shit together, to launch with us. And then, we had a ton of the kind of core New York brands, like half of the top 100, I think we had there. And we got honestly incredible feedback across the board from the shows. The one piece was like be further away from the other show, of course,
Yeah.
and which we get. But then some brands, which we didn't expect this, said it really worked to their advantage because they met a brand, at the first show, and then run into them again at Hall of Flowers.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
so it really got to like they got to like, stop them and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so we'll see. We have dates for next year. I'm not sure what we're gonna do yet. We have two sets of dates. We're deciding right now what we end up doing. But yeah, but
Yeah,
it was
because I feel
yeah,
like your competing show, the Revelry, is also B2B focused, where I feel like some other area shows are more like conference focused, just
yeah,
networking and things like that. And
yeah,
we need all of them.
yes,
And I guess, spaced out would probably really work.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that
yeah,
could really work because, I've also like in my previous life, did the trade show B2B, as a vendor. And, it was seasonal. You had to, they did the shows so that the buyers had enough time to buy for that next season, or,
yeah,
like the Christmas
yeah.
season and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So I wonder if our industry is going to have something like that eventually, but I guess not, because really dispensaries just need to keep that rolling
Yeah. I
product
think
coming
yeah,
through.
yeah, for sure. For now, it's so new in New York that that's what's going to happen. No, we definitely have our show in Ventura coming up in March, and we have those dates picked because people kind of stock up for 420.
Oh,
So we're like a month before that. So a lot of big brands and established retailers, they are planning 420 already, right? But then there's the second half, call it, that are newer brands and shops that don't really know what's going to make it to the shelf. So we see a lot of kind of 420 deals and partnerships, like maybe they know they're going to do something and they formalize it at Hall of Flowers a month earlier, or they have a few products, but now they're going to decide on the marketing language or that kind of stuff. So
right, right, right.
yeah, the other big one would be Green Thursday or whatever they call Green Wednesday, whatever
Oh,
they call
yeah, right.
it, before
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
right.
Like everyone wants to get weed because they have to deal with their family or whatever.
That's right.
Or for their family, cousin walk or whatever it may be. So I could see stuff happening around there as well, um, but yeah, well, the industry's so new,
I know. And
honestly.
what's going to happen if when the borders open up, like once we get cross, trading, that's just going to be,
Yeah.
wow. I can't even imagine. That's going to be a full blown show.
Yeah, I mean that's really what all the California operators are banking on and planning on, is that to finally happen. I have no idea when that
Yeah.
happens or how long it takes, or some states like New Hampshire, right? Like the alcohol is run by the state, so cannabis will be the same. I believe it's going to be run by the state there. So, some people will kind of hold off, and I could see them not letting anything in because they want to control it. But, there's so much great weed grown outdoors in the sun in California and light dep and these greenhouses and stuff. So, why would you not try to, bring some of it in if you could, so.
I know Pennsylvania is another state that they talked about that because the alcohol is controlled by the state there or the
Got it.
liquor stores.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, but I think I was just talking to someone about that kind of in the know there, and they said they think that's just going to go away. That's not even going to come up in conversation again. That it was just like, you know, a nothing conversation,
Yeah,
supposed.
well, that's like what it's so interesting, right? Pennsylvania, even a bunch more states here, they're not even recreational yet. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like Florida's not even rec yet. Florida's
yeah,
medical,
exactly. I mean,
so it's
Pennsylvania's getting
totally,
pretty close.
yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
They're pretty
That's what I
close.
mean, but it hasn't even really started there yet.
Right.
It hasn't
Yeah.
even gone rec in those places. Florida looks like rec because they've just, a couple operators have done a really good job bringing good brands down there, flowery, specifically. And, um, but yeah, we're just getting started in the industry,
Yeah.
really,
I
it's,
know. Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy. And then so yeah, just since we're touching on the California market, I just maybe, maybe what's going to save the California market is if something freaking happens, we get rescheduled or descheduled, that it'll open up the borders
sure.
and help California get out of this terrible position these brands are in and farmers. It makes me so sad they're
Absolutely. I mean,
doing.
yeah, deschedule would be incredible if that happens. I'm not sure what they end up doing, but I'm not a very political person. I grew up very much like punk rock, and the first thing I learned was, like that this system is like much bigger than us, kind of we're like,
Yeah.
it's in it a lot of things. So I just got over my political stuff very early as a kid. And as an adult, I don't let it get to me,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, or even you're seeing what's going on with the farm bill stuff these past 2 days. Like some
Yeah.
they might pull the rug out from, $20 billion or whatever of business is happening. It's crazy.
I know, I know. It's crazy. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
there's, different thoughts on that too, because it's ruining, people who have, it's taking
Yeah.
business away from, the legit people who are paying all this money and taxes and everything else, and they can't even build their brand. They're behind the eight ball because they
Yeah.
can't even build brand awareness or whatever. But like, so from the Hall of Flowers, in California, before New York, or what are you seeing? Like, I mean, what is the state of the brands there? Are they just, what do you think's going to happen?
Allie, here.
Yeah. Like
Um,
from like the brands you're talking to
yeah.
at the Hall of Flowers, they must be so
Yeah.
desperate.
Yeah, everyone's like, well, compared to New York, for sure. They're in a tight spot. The brands are finally looking to license their IP over states and their practices and state lines and internationally, which you've seen a few brands do early on, but I think half of our brands didn't even know where New Jersey was a year ago.
Yeah.
And now they're like racing to be there, which I think is great. And from the very beginning, I've said that should happen.
Yeah.
So I think you're seeing a lot of that. I think that will then kind of lead to an exchange of brands coming back and forth, like, oh, I'll do your brand in Jersey, you do some stuff with me in California and build
Uh,
more of a network up. I could see, again, back to the music thing, that's what the bands did a lot. They traded off, open up for me here, and then we'll open up for you there, and then we'll help you grow audiences and work together kind of thing. So
I
I could,
like that.
yeah, I could see that happening. I would see the merchandise and accessories and products like this start taking a more focus if the brands are like lifestyle brands and they have consumers that want to buy a sweatshirt or a lighter or whatever kind of thing for them. I see them working together more. I see them partnering up and bundling together, like, they have to form, take, I'm a Coke drinker, but, take Pepsi, or I don't drink any of that. I drink Poppy now, of course, but, take like there needs to be a Mountain Dew bundled with the Dr. Pepper, bundled with the Pepsi or the Coke, bundled with the orange soda, and then you have a real portfolio. So I think you're going to see brands doing that, and California's been in for so long. Now people, I think, are starting to specialize, right? And they have like machinery sitting in the corner of the warehouse that they don't even use anymore. That's 6 figures sitting there. And they have these facilities they're not using. So I think it would be crazy for them not to. The thing is, like, no one, they're all kind of frenemies, right? They don't really like nervous. They're all nervous about sharing information and stuff. But unless they start doing that and grouping up and merging together or whatever you want to call it, then I don't know what happens. I don't.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. But so would they would keep their brands or just building a portfolio? So if I'm a New York brand, you're a California
Sure.
brand, you would launch mine under my brand and just have like a portfolio of different
Sure.
types of, yeah,
Yeah. I
that
think
makes,
you're seeing that already. And I think naturally that will happen. It will be because the reality of licensing a brand, right, is like, and I've done so many of these deals over the past 12 years. You license a brand to another state, California to New York, call it for now. And after like a few weeks or a few months, the New York brand, the New York company is kind of like, why am I licensing this brand into my state? They're not really doing that much for me. Are they the Toyota dealership of, they Toyota and they buying ads all around to sell Toyota? Not really. You know what I mean? They're just like giving me, like, I'm just making the packaging at this point. I'm not even, and I'm paying a royalty back. So
right,
unless you're a brand that can really get out and do marketing and stuff, I think it's going to be hard to maintain those deals. You see a brand like Sluggers maybe doing it pretty well, I would say. I'm sure there's a bunch that are doing it great, but I just see them doing deals, but then they're supporting the licensing deal with a ton of merchandise and shop in shops, and they really are supporting the local brand, the local partners. So I've done dozens
it,
of these deals that just fade out after a year because it's like, why are we paying a royalty for
right.
this brand that's not really doing much for me?
Right. The
Um,
same perspective as a store would have. You're going to have a lot more leverage and
Absolutely.
right. If you're marketing and they're,
Yeah.
I always say this, the stores are not there to build your business. They're there to sell your product.
Yeah.
You have to build your marketing and bring that
Yeah.
into the game. Otherwise, it just isn't good. Yeah, it's just so it's the same idea that you're saying that if you want to partner, because there are a lot of partnerships, the white labeling or the
Of
launching
course.
brands, that's how they've obviously come into the state. So yeah, so I never really thought about it in that way, but that makes sense because the manufacturer has to you know, keep producing. How is he going to
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, they get after 6 months or a year, after they start sending checks back to some place, they go, what are we doing? Why are we sending money back to this company that doesn't do much for us? Like,
Yeah,
that's the deal we struck a year ago. And so, they're just not really like long term. I haven't seen many of them long term because people just want to own their own brand and company. Even to flip over to retail point of view, if I was a retailer, I'd have 30% of the shelf would be my own product. I'd have like any other retailer on the planet is. At this
right.
point, every retailer has their own stuff on the shelf. They have to survive. You know.
Right. That they
So
need the
yeah,
profit margins. Yeah.
yeah. But
Like Trader Joe's, Whole
that's right.
Foods. Yeah.
Everybody has it. But like, but it's so hard, much easier said than done, right? It's like retail is an expertise, very hard to do it. And then now I have to run a brand inside of the retail. It's very, now you got to do two things really hard.
Right.
And it's a commitment, financial, staffing, all that stuff. You have to really commit to building it. So,
Right.
but that's it's the future. You have to be,
Right.
and the retailers will consolidate too. Right now there's whatever, 1,100 shops or something like that. In California, like 450 or something in New York, like every week it's more. I forget what the number is at the moment.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, like that will all those, and there's like 700 buyers or something that will get down, like, and then there'll be like people that buy for 50 shops and 100 shops and 200 shops and that kind of stuff. It doesn't exist yet.
Right, right, right.
in cannabis,
So,
you know?
yeah, good point and all that. Yeah. So what other things did you offer at the show, or what were some of the, different, I don't know, activations or
Yeah.
that you did at the show?
Yeah, so we didn't do too much because the venue, and I know you think it's huge, but for us it's really small. You know,
Wow.
it's the smallest venue that we've used, you know. So normally we'd have like a giant outdoor consumption area. We weren't really allowed to do that in New York. So we did rent the pier and shut everything down, but we couldn't really do too much of a consumption area legally, you know, like people can do whatever they want, blah blah blah, you know,
But
people
you couldn't set it
there.
up like,
Yeah, but the state didn't want us to do that, I guess. You know, I'm not exactly sure how it was phrased, but to me it was like we can't really do one. Um, but we did shut the whole pier down and the whole venue and everything like that. So, you know, the venue itself was to me like the thing, you know, just like having that outdoor by the bridge on the water experience, you know, was really, really special. And then, you know, we had an art um installation from a local collective called Skewville, and they had a Bill Day Bong workshop where people could kind of pick like their old vessels of glass. They had a bunch of vintage stuff and whatever, and they would like make and drill out a bong for you there as a gift. Uh,
wow.
yeah, which was really really cool. That was sponsored by Flow Hub. And you know, cool, you know, definitely a cool activation for a brand like that. And you know, that's not like a cannabis weed brand or something, you know.
Mhm.
And then there wasn't like much beyond like our booth systems and stuff, right? So Hall of Flowers, why it's so successful and effective is it's built like fully to optimize the buying process for the retailer, right? So my partners did trade shows for 20 years before this, and you know, we own everything. We built everything from scratch, and like, you know, we own the walls, you know, which we install for you. We have the shelves, which are all like really higher shelves. Nothing's low, nothing's even waist level and below. You know, we have high top tables that we own. We have the signage in the back. We have the ID sign above the booth, so you can kind of like really have this clear sight line, and you can walk the show like you're going to Costco or whatever, and you can be like, okay, what's for sale in these like stalls, you know, versus, you know, a lot of other shows, you know, not just cannabis, but in general, you kind of can do whatever you want, you know. So there's like these crazy, not formatted spaces, and what we do is so intentional. And it's because it's only so the buyers can have a quick experience and have a, you know, and buy more essentially and
Yeah,
see all the booths, right? So like we
right.
have a huge list of things you can't do, and people get up kind of upset, like I should be able to do whatever I want. And normally what they want to do is build like a 20-foot tall crazy thing, or have a DJ or something that's like, you know, throws off the neighbors and the whole point of it. It's not to peacock out. We want some of that. I personally like that stuff. I'm like an art guy, you know, but the buyers don't want that. The buyers want to go shopping, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that's what I'd say, that's really what we bring. So the first show, it was like, let's just deliver what we have been doing forever in California, you know, or for 8 years in California. And then of course, you know, in the California, we have speakers and panels and things like that. We have other big activations, and you know, we've done a consumer opening thing, you know, for 2 years ago, you know, which we did rides and the whole thing. And um, you know, the brands and buyers really want to shop. So even the show that was before us at that venue, you know, they have a consumer day, you know, festival and the B2B. And you know, if you want to see 400 shops, 500 shops in 2 days, you need to see a shop every few minutes. So to have it in one day, you're seeing a shop every, I forget what it was. I did the math. It was like every 60 seconds or something. You know, there's
Mm.
just not enough time in the day to see everybody. So, you know, really they want meetings, and they want write orders, wholesale orders, you know. So
Yeah.
that's what we do. So it's crazy because Hall of Flowers has become, everyone knows about it. And there's like almost 100,000 followers online. And it's like this crazy huge thing. But it's really just like for a couple thousand people to shop. It's
Yeah.
cool that it's become much bigger than like what the intent was.
Right. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about why did you not do the consumer facing? Because
Yeah.
to me, you know, I mean, I'm just it's two different worlds. Like,
Yeah,
I
it
went
is.
to Spannabis a couple years ago for the
Yep.
first time,
Yep.
and I had no idea what to expect. And
Yep.
I was listen, my partying days are over like that. I'm not into hanging out, and
Yep.
doing that. But it just was like such two different worlds, and my mind
That's
was
right.
on business,
Yep.
and then to throw me over, it's like, wait, my day's not up. I'm
Yep.
like, I'm
100%.
working right
Yep.
now. Like, what?
Yep.
I can't go out there and start partying.
Yep.
So the whole concept, but it seems to be Spanibus, and then Revelry did it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly what you just said. That's why we don't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we
And
want yeah,
I was wondering how the brands felt. Like, was that worth it? The buyers obviously don't care because they're not
yeah,
drawing these people to their store, you
yeah,
know, 10 block, 100 blocks away or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
But I wonder if if there was a good ROI for the brands. Like, did they,
So
was
when we did it in Santa Rosa 2 years ago, and we didn't do it again. We are looking at some ideas, in general around consumer, of course. We like that idea, but the big brands love it because they do well because they have fans. They have 50 kids or 100 kids that come and buy the weed. The unknown brands and the accessories and the softwares, the flow hubs of the world, these other exhibitors, like even a huge percentage of the actual weed brands and the vape companies and the edibles, the I don't think there's enough people come through to make it worth it. If you had 50,000 kids come through, every single shop gets sold out. Every brand sells out because, oh, they sold out of the best stuff. Now all we have is this beer left, if you will, or we ran out of the special, but we got a bunch of other stuff on the menu. Of course, you go through it all. But what we saw was the big brands loved it. The medium and smaller brands didn't, you know, they some of them thought it was okay, but they didn't really get the ROI they were hoping out of it. I was telling everybody from the beginning, and I don't know if anyone listened to me, but that if I was a medium or a small brand, I'd be using it as like a polling opportunity. Like, do you vape? Okay, perfect. What do you look for in a vape? Like, that's it. And then
oh yeah, brand
ask
R&D.
ask that to 2,000 people versus like, do you want to buy my vape?
Great
You know what
idea.
I mean? Like kind of thing. Just because the people that we brought out, we didn't have any talent really. It wasn't like a come to see the DJ thing or the artist. We didn't want to do that. To us, weed is always going to be the headliner, right? So that's the first thing. So we brought up just like people that buy and sell a lot of weed or buy and smoke a lot of weed or consume or drink or whatever. We brought like the stoners out. That was the whole point. So, but so I think you have a chance to get in front of this expert, or in Vegas they use the term prosumer. These people
Mm.
that go to SEMA and these like shows, they go to Vegas for the
Oh,
show or the electronic show. Those are called prosumers. That's
okay.
really who we wanted there, which is who we got there. We hit our numbers. It was we got as many people as we wanted, and but the brands want to sell product. So if they're not selling product, it's hard to see an ROI from that. And then the retailers don't like it at all. It just takes away a day of their shopping.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
those,
it'll be interesting to see how that happens, but I didn't, yeah.
yeah, and then we did have
Maybe
a
the consumer thought it was cool,
consumers loved it. We had
uh,
incredible consumer scores. They thought it was absolutely, yeah, of course. It
okay.
was what they
They're
wanted.
like cannabis everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like weed's the headliner. I don't have to hide my weed going into this event. Like, oh my God, it's their dream. We treated them like it wasn't the kids' table finally for them. And then I would say the one we did get feedback from a retailer recently about it, and which they did like the festival side because they could then follow the crowds around and see what brands were reacting to people. So they met a few new brands. They didn't even know who they were, but they had a crowd and they were like, oh, because I think a big thing, right? Like to kind of tighten this little, conversation part up, it's about selling through and not just selling in. Right? That's what dispensaries want. They don't want you to sell in. They want you to help sell through the product. Right?
Right,
That's what
right,
New
right.
Yorkers are going to learn very soon. California, that's what it's all about right now. So to me, that's what it needs to be about.
Which comes back to marketing your own brand. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like it comes
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
to get it to sell through. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Right.
that one retailer was kind of saying, like they were curious to see like crowds around companies because they knew they weren't going to be alone trying to push that product. If the crowd can, if the brand can send in even a dozen people to the shop for the first time, that's huge.
Yeah, that is huge
So
for
yeah,
sure.
so
Wow. And then just yeah, what any takeaways like what you did you see any distinct differences between like LA or California brands versus the New York vibe,
yeah,
culture?
of course, yeah, of
Yeah.
course, always. It's just it's everything about it is a different vibe. It's New Yorkers like, and again, I lived in Williamsburg like when it was dangerous, like in the
Hips,
late
and
night.
it wasn't hipster back then.
It was start. Well, I was hipster probably, so, and I had a Vespa and the whole thing, so I was
Oh, okay.
original hipster. But it was like the late 1900s when I lived in Williamsburg, and I would say like, New Yorkers, like they're like shirts and their jackets and their sneakers. That's like versus their cars or whatever, like
Oh,
California is, or right, and
yeah.
so like the people were just like, you know, much more into like fashion and streetwear and dressing up and cooler haircuts and cooler fits, which was just awesome for me. For again, I came from fashion forever, and my partners did fashion forever, and currently do a big fashion event still. And so it was just cool to see like the New Yorkers coming out, and then it was awesome to see like the New York weed people, like the weed heads that didn't even have booths with us, but that were walking the show being like, this is awesome and legit, and giving us the thumbs up. That was really, really like super great to see, to feel that, and have people come up to me that was like, I was like begging to do the show, and they were like, oh, we don't know about trade shows. And now they're like, oh, this is pretty cool, actually. So I think that was great. And then, there's just such a different sense of hope really in New York.
Mm.
Honestly,
Mm.
like New York, New Jersey, it's like we're gonna be rich. Everyone's like, it's like California 5, 7, 8, 10 years ago. You
You're
know,
like, shit,
uh,
how do I get out of here?
yeah, California. It's like I came into this like literally with partners and stuff that I've known for forever, 20 plus years, 25 years. You know, um, I call myself like a lifer in the space. I've been smoking weed forever, and I've been doing Green Street for it's been 13 or 14 years doing cannabis stuff only. But when I came into it, my I got the same feeling I did from like the punk men and women on my label that I worked with that became gigantic superstars that were playing basement shows when we met. And I got the same feeling from them as I did from like the men and women in cannabis. And I
Mm.
looked at it like it's going to take a long time, but if I could survive off making $2 an hour for 10 years, then to me, trust was going to be the most valuable thing. So that's what I did. So I really like we put the time in for a long, long, long time, whatever to do this. And my partner, Gary Vaynerchuk's a partner in this thing with us. And when he came in, he was like, think of 30 years from now. Like that's when I want my money back kind of thing. And my partners now did trade shows for 20 years. So they're like 20-year plan. So we're
Mm.
coming into this like and it's only been 7 or 8 years for Hall Flowers. I look at it like we're just getting started really. Like we have
Mm.
because we have another 10 years of energy in us to do the show, and
Right. Yeah.
so, yeah, so I think that we're really different in the space. A lot of people are coming into the space or are in the space that are like, the worst from energy drinks or fashion or music or like just like, corporate marketing or CFOs or whatever. And they're coming into it like for like a career. And I think it's really hard to do that. I don't think the money's enough, and like the industry's too unorganized right now to really like have someone be like not love weed,
I
really
know you
want
have
to
to.
do this,
I
So
totally agree. There's something about it. I mean, I'm a
yeah,
lifelong user myself, but there's just something about
yeah.
weed. I know it's crazy.
Yeah, so it's hard. It's hard if you're just like the North, the person that left North Face, and now you're like the marketing director of a company, and you know nothing about cannabis, and it's going to be hard for that person, and
Yeah.
so I just think, California has gone through that, is going through, we're seeing all that happen, gone out and gone, whatever. Now, what I said before, maybe they start joining forces, or whatever. And New York hasn't seen it yet. New York still is like going, getting off the thing, So,
Yeah, we're
but yeah,
trying so hard.
yeah, but New York's the capital of the world. It's gonna be the capital of cannabis beyond, besides California, just because of the head start, and of course, all Emerald Triangle, all the California weed has been going to New York for 25 years or whatever, as it,
Exactly, exactly. And also
so,
what a prime spot to get your brand start building brand recognition on a global level because we have so many tourists here. I mean, I would have thought that was in your mind when you're bringing the show here because
absolutely.
it's going to be the for them to come into New York and check out is to go through these trade shows and really
Yeah.
if you're wanting to jump into this market in any way. Yeah.
Yeah, New York's the capital of the world. If you're big in New York, you're big around the globe.
Yeah,
No, I, I
exactly.
I grew the biggest stuff in Boston. No one cared outside of that. I grew huge shit in San Francisco. No one cared outside of that. I built something big in LA, it goes global. You build something big in New York, it goes global. Just because that's the audience, So
That's the
yeah,
audience.
yeah, it's
I
much
mean,
harder to do it, but when you do it, like the show we just did in New York, it's the shot heard around the world. Like there's people right now in Egypt or whatever, and they're like, "We got to do the weed stuff, Hall of Flowers. Like, did you see this thing in New York?" So. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's, yeah, I always kind of grab this thing that I'm going to grab it for you real quick. Just
Okay.
it's this painting that I always kind of show off, and people think I'm crazy, I'm sure, but there's this painting here that I bought from a guy in England, okay, and you have a reflection, but you kind of can see the band. It's called Strife, the band at the top, and it says 1991 up here, and at the bottom here you're getting a reflection, but it says New Bedford Festival down the bottom here, okay, New Bedford Fest 1993, okay, so this is a painting that I recently bought from England. Here's my stuff, and it's it's inspired by a festival in 1993 that I put on.
So they got inspired by that festival and did it in England?
Did this painting that I bought it 2 years ago or something, um it's a band that played in this festival that was crazy, but like this is like 30 years 30 years prior. I was in high school when I did the festival. My mom legit dropped me off at the venue, you know, and this is before the internet, this is before cell phones, so, and I did this festival, which like people from all around the world came to, and it became much bigger than I thought. It was 3 days. I did it with a dear friend, Kendra Eddy, and but the fact that like it's getting talked about 30 years later and putting these paintings, I tell my Hall of Flowers team like what we just did is going to be so important, and they're going to be talking about this show for decades. People literally are like, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about, on my own team. And I'm like, but you don't understand how like culturally important that what we're doing is, and that's why like when I have stuff like this, or I'm working with a friend on another project that I've known for 30 years. Like, it's hard to go into Hall of Flowers and not be like, okay, if I do this right, 30 years from now, someone's going to give a shit about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And here, yeah, here's the spot. It's almost like it could be like everybody's goes to Spanibus, like people be coming.
Cannabis will be talked about forever and ever and ever. And 20 years from now, 30 years from now, people are gonna, if it doesn't exist, people are gonna talk about this thing, Spanibus, whatever, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
crazy.
Um,
So is there anything that just stands out in your mind as far as like maybe what New Yorkers, are missing as far as form factors or different products? Because we always look to the West Coast, and you see like when pre-rolls, infused pre-rolls were coming out, they
yeah, yeah,
originated
yeah,
there, and then all of a
yeah,
sudden you felt the wave coming, and it just was little by little, and then all of a sudden it's appearing everywhere. Now it's like so normal,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
I would say the only thing I thought I'd see a little more of was beverages. You know,
Uh, they're
yeah,
starting to really pop up now, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. I thought I'd see more of them. Maybe I just didn't notice or something like that, and there was more. But that's the one thing that I thought I thought I'd see more of. It's happening like here. I personally love beverage. I've been bullish on beverage for a long time. I can't
Yeah.
really do like normal edibles. I can't like commit to them, I like to say. But the beverage is, it's just hitting me different and quicker and all that stuff. And yeah, I feel more like it's replacing booze even, much easier than a gummy would for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just went into a dispensary the other day to get a beverage, and there were a couple, there's one brand that I really like, Klaus. And because all the others are basically just, THC flavored soda, seltzer water kind of thing. But
Yeah,
this had a really nice depth to it. But when I went in there the other day, I did notice there were more options. So I think it's
yeah,
starting to come into the market, because I thought,
yeah,
oh, usually like three or four, there's like three or
yeah,
four that I know of.
yeah, yeah,
But I walked in, I'm like, wait, I haven't heard of that brand. Now
yeah,
it's starting
yeah,
to come on so fast,
yeah, yeah,
I can't really keep up with all the new brands, or who's the farmer they're working with, who's the manufacturer, that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's going to be a whole thing in New York anyway. But yeah, I'm
yeah,
excited. And New
yeah,
York's just, I mean, it's like half the licenses or whatever, not even, are live, so.
right, right, right. And then, what about your kind of winding down a little bit here? What about your blueprint
Yeah.
initiative, or is it something
Yeah, yeah,
you have at
yeah.
the
Yeah, we'll call it like a section maybe or something
okay
like that.
section? Yeah.
Yeah, Blueprint, it's like our answer to Vegas, maybe if you will, like the shows out in Vegas that have like the machinery and all the equipment and stuff, there's a show in December that happens out there. And like a big trade show. And we get those type of brands hit us up all the time and they want to be on the floor. And we don't really do it because it just doesn't fit. Like we really focus on licensed cannabis retailers and
Oh,
California
you're not mixing
brands.
the
Yeah, we try not to. We do a little bit, but like there's a amazing tech company, incredible, called Xylem, and they like had been begging to get a spot on the floor. Finally, we did it, and they're super happy with it. But we don't want to sell booths to people that don't come back. And we don't
Mhm.
want to, and if our target is retailers, the retailers don't give a shit about a vape filling machine necessarily. You know what I mean? I think they
Yeah,
should.
yeah, it's almost like again the
Yeah,
Spanibus thing where you're kind of
yeah,
like, wait, my focus is on brands, but now
yeah.
you're talking about, unless you're a manufacturer, but
Yeah,
I
so the brands are like our exhibitors are manufacturers, right? So it's like, can we give can we give a show with like sourcing type of, offerings to our brands like grow lights or this kind of stuff. So we had a section called Blueprint that we did that was maybe 30 companies or something as a test in Ventura last year.
Mhm,
And we haven't done it again, but we're thinking we do it in Ventura again this year.
mhm.
Eventually, we'd love to have like a whole building dedicated to it, but again, we're like so like nervous. We want to make sure we turn down hundreds of companies for the trade show already. Like hundreds of companies. Like most trade shows, regardless of the industry, if your check clears, you get into the show.
Yeah,
We turn down companies because we don't want, it's all about the buyers having a good time. And they don't want a lot of that stuff like we mentioned.
Yeah, I think if it's separate, like you're saying, it could work.
Yeah,
Because like blended in with all the other stuff, like yeah, I think that's where it gets confusing in your mind. Like you're just like in this,
yeah,
you're trying to be focused, and then, but I think if it was in a different building or it's a whole section dedicated to it,
yeah. Yeah, right
because
now, last Ventura, we had like a corner of one of the buildings. It was like
Mhm.
pretty clear, and it was like, oh, there's a bunch of equipment or whatever.
Yeah, I don't, and maybe you're not really, like you said, not really looking at them so much right now because you're focused on the B2B side, but is there anything that you've seen, like innovative technology or equipment that you kind of stands out to you? Because there's so much innovation in that space
Oh
that,
my God, yeah.
there's so much innovation that, and it's getting more and more. Honestly, I think you could almost do a show on, like you said, like just a show on this
Yeah,
because, every time I talk to somebody, it just feels like they're just have some great new technology. Like, for instance, I just interviewed someone the other day who uses X-ray technology for remediation and cultivation. It's like, but when you really dig into it, it's like it's a very interesting compared to all the other remediation
sure.
technologies, and the way they're infusing terps into the bud of the weed because of course we lose it so much and instead of the spray on crap, like this is like a real technology that's actually going into the stuff like that. There's some stuff out there. Um,
Yeah. Well,
some cool.
it's probably the final frontier is like that how tech can layer on top of cannabis, right?
Yeah, and also because we need custom equipment, custom systems, because I have custom needs. Nobody, pre-roll machines, let's just say, our manufacturing assembly line has to have different things. It's all very like we're building a whole industry, like, the industrial side of it. So. And for more efficiency in the supply chain and for their manufacturing, they all need that. All these guys, the pre-roll guys and the extractors and they're scaling up. It's a pretty big section really. So,
Yeah, it's huge.
um,
It's actually probably part of if you ask me again what the future of California holds,
mhm.
I would now add on technology layer because you're going to see companies replace 100 employees with a machine. You really are, but it's gonna be needed because otherwise that company goes out of business probably.
Right,
I
right,
mean, so
right.
I think a lot of people bought this equipment. I've seen so much equipment just sitting in a corner and then like filling vapes with like a little hand thing. You know what I mean? And like, so I feel like if I'm just fully, pontificating here, but like my hunch would be these companies have every one of them, hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment that they don't even use anymore. And therefore, they're really nervous to buy another piece of equipment because it could just sit collecting dust next to the one they already bought. So I think there needs to be like back again to the consolidation or grouping up. It will be like someone will take 5 pre-roll companies and merge them together and do the right technology and be like, hey, you want to make twice as much for every pack you
Yeah,
sell? Oh,
right.
yeah, I know you do. So we got to do that. And I know it's a big deal because you got to shut down your plant or whatever. But right now, you're like, you lost money every month for the past 2 years or whatever. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's going to be crazy. So I guess the last question is what's next for Hall of Flowers? I know you have your show in California, Toronto, which and now New York. Are you going to New Jersey? Are you well, that was another question. Did you have a lot of New Jersey people? I know it's not the same
yeah,
buyers,
we
but
wanted to. Our vision really is it's a Northeast show. That's really
yeah,
what I want. You can't do that technically, but we definitely, don't want to have shows all over the place. Our
yeah.
goal would just be to have a couple tentpole events.
Well, you
And
can do it. You just can't have your product here,
yeah,
right?
you'd have to have, yeah, even yes, absolutely. And yes, you could do it. And it's like, so will some do it? Yeah, maybe they will now after this. Maybe it's worth it. Again, that requires us to get New Jersey retailers to come too, which is
Yeah.
fine. Like our original plan was that, well, I guess still is like eventually we'll have buyers come from Maine and Mass and Connecticut to New York and, and up from Pennsylvania and DC and the whole thing. And you could have little sections or whatever, but I don't know if we'll ever get there or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, New York will have 100 new brands that they didn't have last year will or this year will be next year, right? It's going to be that forever. There's going to be 100 new companies for forever for the next 8 years
Yeah.
launching out of New York every year. It's going to be like, people meet at a bar. Let's start a weed company. Old friends that were like slanging and doing delivery. Let's go legit. Like the fucking, corporate people will be like, how hard can it be? My cousin grew tomatoes or whatever. You know what I mean? And they'll come
Yeah.
and go and, whatever.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I see. Yeah, right.
That's just
Well,
how many California cannabis brands have there been? Thousands, I don't know, 1,000, right? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hundreds right now, so over the past 8 years, they'll kind of come in and out, and some will stay and then some will come back and blah blah blah, so that's why, like, for us Hall Flowers, it's like, you know we just have to adapt and change and experiment and try new, like, we're not scared to try shit and fail and have stuff work. Even if we have stuff that works, we change it, like, we just will always kind of evolve, until it gets to the point where the industry is really stable, but that's a decade more
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
thing, so of
So cool. Well, thank you so much. And when are you guys
course.
thinking of coming back next year? You're going to just do one show a year, kind of right now? That's the
Um,
idea.
we have ideas.
Okay.
We have a couple different dates on hold for next year
Okay.
for New York.
Okay.
We'll announce it sooner than later. We'll announce it,
Okay.
type of thing. And
Yeah.
we're just trying to figure out what to do. And we just finally locked and announced our dates for Ventura, which is March 18th and 19th. And then, normally we do something in the fall in Northern California. So we're trying to figure out what to do there. And then for New York, obviously had a huge success. So that was the fall, trying to figure out what the best thing to do there is. And then we did not do Toronto this year. And I don't
Mhm.
know if we'll do Toronto next year. We kind of took the energy and the kind of focus from Toronto and made that New York. Yeah. That was
Yeah.
even my partner Danny. He's like a very smart guy, and he for before we even launched Toronto, he was like, Toronto is going to give us a foothold on the East Coast, and then it won't be weird when we move from Toronto to New York. Like full
Hmm.
plant. Like, it was
Hmm.
wild.
But
Like,
honestly, I don't think it's weird that, you're a recognized, it's like you said, two major players, California and New York,
yeah,
and you brought it over to New York. It's
yeah,
just makes complete
yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
And
that's
it,
the key. Yeah.
and it's kind of like California is like our big brother, and we need that guidance, and we need the expertise coming from there, and also what you guys are bringing, that's a whole different thing. And you've been in there, you've lived there forever, so you're bringing that head culture in here. So kind of makes sense, really.
Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, I think Big Brother's a great way to describe it. Yeah, New York's, again, it's the capital of the world, right? It's gonna
Yeah.
be, but the product coming from, Emerald Triangle to New York, I mean, how much weed has come there? I don't even know.
I know. That's what I mean is
Weed,
people know of it. It's the,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
the
that's the good
culture.
news. It was like, I'm sure they don't, I'm sure they're territorial about the California brands coming for the shelf space, but they've wanted, when I would get weed delivered in a little plastic cube in New York, it was like Cali Bud was like, this was before Indica and Sativa. It was just like, we have weed. Maybe they had
Yeah,
two kinds of
whatever we
weed,
give you, that's it.
yeah, but it was like California, it was always coming from California. At least that's what the marketing was back then, So
Yeah,
that's the good news. It's like,
yeah,
welcome, brother. But yeah, and it will be the little brother that grows taller and is stronger, right? Because it learned from the
yeah.
older
I
brother,
mean,
Yeah.
I think most people believe that. Of course, we want to protect the small guys, but that really has to do more with like the MSOs, taking
Yep.
over, and if consolidation happens and then they kind of take over. Like one of the extractors, one of the very, does really well in the state. He also has a cultivation license, and he gave it up because he said you can't compete as a small farmer in this state against the MSOs because they had the head start. They have the indoor cultivation. We weren't given that. They only got an acre of land to work with. So he's just like, I'm extracting, and that's all he's doing in his
Good.
expertise. And he's
Yeah.
making products
Okay.
for other people as well.
Yeah.
But
That's
but
good.
I don't know if you noticed also the interesting dynamic between the dispensaries and and the brands, the cultivators and the extractors, is because we have 56% social equity licenses here. So all these guys, whether they were distributors or growers themselves, all know each other from years and years and years of being in the industry. So when you see them all get together in the same room, it's like, wow, this is like the underground market here. Like you
Yeah.
could just
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
they just look,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
and there's such a tight, I have heard some outside brands say it's hard to penetrate that
Yeah.
loyalty that they have because they're
Yeah.
trying to get each other, going. It's a good thing,
Yeah, yeah,
but
that's good.
generally, I
Well,
think
yeah,
they
it's
appreciate it.
good that because again, the MSLs will just come in and crush them if they don't join forces, which is good. And I'll say one thing that the feedback we got from the retail survey in New York, which I thought was really interesting, which is you're gonna love, which was the retailers' number one question was probably like or it's like we asked for advice, what else could you recommend? And they said more defining of the indie, smaller licensed cultivators and brands. They really wanted to shop the other independents, which was awesome, which was
Oh,
so cool. So backing
yeah.
up kind of what you're saying. And now that makes sense
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, fuck yeah, of course. Like, yeah,
Yeah. There is a focus on helping that smaller brand
yeah,
here.
yeah. I'm like the indie punk guy my whole life. I
Yeah,
think there's a place for the MSOs, and
there
I have
is.
relationships with them. Of course, they're exhibitors with us and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be those two worlds. There's going to be like the, Budweisers of the world or whatever you want to call it, the big corporate people like that. Then hopefully, because I love weed, they'll be like the connoisseur side of it, and the people that make, the other kinds of products, more high quality products or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Craft, I guess we'll use the word maybe there. But yeah, it's no, New York is it's going to be so exciting. It's such,
Yeah.
like, I'm glad you get to see it like, every day kind of growing. It's also I'm loving just smoking weed. I used to smoke weed in New York anyways, anywhere, but now it's like walking down the street and it's like a group of like, looks like they're like NYU kids like smoking a joint and everything, and then a group like every type of fucking demographic and genre of, fucking the emos to the fucking Asians, everybody in between, all smoking weed. It's so cool.
I know. I know.
I
I
love
know.
it. I love it. I love it. It's not just
I
like the,
know. You really just don't even think about it. You just walk down the street
yeah,
and, you
yeah.
know,
I'm
and it's
obsessed actually with the dispensaries. By the way, dispensaries in Manhattan are like 10 out of 10. They're so cool.
really.
Oh my God. I'm just so into them. Like I went like they're just I love like shopping personally, right? So I love a store has like a record thing and some other apparel, and that maybe happened in California, and then now they just sell weed. But like to have it not just be about like, a shelf of weed products is so cool to me. But I love outdoor. A lot of them have like a couple little tables and chairs just like set up.
Oh, yeah. I guess you can't do
Dream.
that there. Yeah. Yeah.
Dream.
There's a couple of those. Yeah.
Dream. That's it. Like when I could do that, it's just like, oh my God, like now we've made it. Because again, like you're in Soho, there's that one, I'm blanking on the name of it, right out kind of there, like, and
On West Broadway,
yeah,
Dagmar or no,
yeah,
Dagmar?
yes, it is. Yes, exactly that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful shop, and they have a couple tables aside, but like it just helps normalize this, right? It's like
Yeah.
people are shopping with their family or college or grandparents or whatever, and they walk by and it's like, it's not like they're hiding in the thing smoking weed in the alleyway. It's like right out, so it just makes it seem like even if the grandma's not smoking weed, it just makes it seem like it's totally acceptable now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's New York, so the fact that that's happening, it's like subconsciously is just putting cannabis in such a cool spot. But yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't wait. I love it there. I want to move back there or something like that. I don't know. I look at places like every day in New York.
Oh,
Too cold right now, but
today, yeah, it's freezing
I
today.
got through March. Maybe I'll come there, for the show later next year. But
Yeah.
well, thank you for the time and stuff.
you.
Everything. Really appreciate it.
Really great to meet you. I'm
Yeah,
really
good to meet you.
so glad to have met you.